So what I'm going to present today is about high performance gas separation studies by membrane technology. So I am Dr. Mridusmita Barooah from NIT Warangal. So this work basically is because of the whole effect of global warming and the climate change which has been happening. So we all know how it has been a great concern for each and every individual worldwide. Right, and the reason of global warming is basically for definitely there are various reasons for that. So one of the major reason is the increase in the greenhouse gases. Right now, we know that there are some greenhouse gases. So some of them are methane, nitrous oxide, carbon dioxide, ozone. Okay, out of all of these, carbon dioxide contributes the it is the chief greenhouse gas we can see, and it is responsible for the global warming and the human induced climate change which has been happening. So if we know and see here, we can understand in this graph that the CO2 level in the atmosphere, the safe level is uh, estimated to be around 350 ppm, but this has been increasing every month. And now it has, even in September 2019, it already crossed 400 ppm. So that is quite dangerous because and the whole effect of industrialization cannot be neglected for this, right? Because we know that there are industries which are being set up, there is vehicular emission which is going on, there is deforestation. So these are all responsible for the increase in the CO2 level in the atmosphere. So then the whole one more slide which I show here is that the climate risk which can happen with only 0.5 degrees centigrade increase in the Earth's atmospheric temperature. So if you see here, with the increase in just 0.5 degrees centigrade, we can see extreme weather conditions where the species, uh, land species, even aquatic species, humans, every living being is going to be affected by it. So there'll be definitely sea level rise as well. So now how do we curb that? So the CO2 emission, as I already mentioned, these in the pictures also we can see these are the main reasons because of which the CO2 emission is happening. Now this CO2 emission definitely depends on a few factors. So what are these factors? Number one is the size of the emission source. Okay, and secondly is whether these sources are stationary or moving sources. Also, we have to make sure how far or near it is to potential storage sites. I'll do talk about this in the next slide. So, and also how concentrated is the CO2 emission. Now, the CO2, this capture technology actually is, can be broadly classified as capture and storage technology. So we also call this as a CCS technology. So here in the CCS technology, first, the main concern is the capture of the CO2 from the emission sources. And after capture, we need to store them. So we store them either underground, in the underground, or in the sea, deep inside the sea levels. Okay, so that the carbon dioxide can be stored. Now this capture can basically take place in three technologies are defined for that. So one is the post combustion technology, where after the whole the combustion has happened and the CO2 is being emitted, we capture it after it is the combustion is completed. Okay, so that is the post combustion technology. Now the CO2 can also be captured in the pre-combustion technology as well, and also oxy-fuel combustion technology is there. Okay, so basically what this work was based on the post-combustion technology. Now, these are some of the very conventional technologies that we see, which are already applied for the capture of CO2. Now, absorption, or cryogenic distillation have been already industrially been used. But we see that even though these are very good technologies for the CO2 capture, but then we need the use of high energy or even solvents. Okay, so the use of solvents means we again need to recycle them, and there is high cost involved. So if we can manage to capture the CO2 by using a technology which is much more advanced, which does not use any other external source of energy, or there is no use of solvent, that would definitely be a better choice, right? So here we then go to the concept of the membrane system. So in the membrane system, we see that these have some advantages. So what are the advantages of the membrane system? First of all, these have a very compact membrane module. Secondly, these are very lightweight and space efficient. And then it has low energy consumption and easy to process. Okay, so if we can find out that, it gives us that much separation as compared to the convention, then definitely we can go for the membrane technology. Now, in this diagram, if you can see, this is a real picture which has been taken from UOP LLC, Illinois, USA. Company, and there what they show here is, on the right hand side, if you see, this is an amine scrubber system. So this is where the absorption technique is taking place, whereas the same separation is being carried out by a polymeric membranes. So there are 20 polymeric membranes in the module shape, and the same separation task has been performed. So if you see in the picture itself, we know how a compact module can give us if it can give us definitely it's a better choice, right? From all aspects, economic or even the environmental aspects. So now the membrane technology, to be a replacement for these conventional technologies, definitely it has to surpass some properties. So what are they? First of all, the membrane price, the membrane that we are using for the separation, should have a fixed price of around $30 to $40 per meter square. And secondly, we have to see that the CO2 performance, which is measured in terms of the permeance and the selectivity. So the CO2 permeance should be, either 100 GPU. So GPU is the unit by which we calculate the permeance. So, it should be either 100 or more than 100 GPU. And the selectivity should always be greater than 70. So in most of the cases, we see that some membranes do give us a good permeance, but sometimes the selectivity is low. So that cannot be a choice. So here, if you see, these are basically the three types of membranes which we use for the separation of CO2, okay, and even other gases as well. So here, the polymeric membrane has been used, one of the first type of membranes which were used. Now, in this polymeric membranes, we definitely see that there is a lot of, it's very easy to process and it's quite cheap as well. But we see that sometimes there is a imbalance in this CO2 performance. Sometimes it gives us a good permeance, but it is not giving us a good selectivity. So then we can go for an inorganic membrane, which otherwise will give us a very good CO2 separation. But as we know, the inorganic materials are much more expensive, and sometimes they are also brittle. So while performing the separation, the membranes might break, and this is not at all conducive, right? So then the mixed matrix membrane are much more advanced or new form of membrane, we can say, which tries to take the advantages of both the polymeric as well as the inorganic membranes, where what we do is we take the base as the polymer and we embed it with the inorganic particles. Okay, so this mixed matrix membranes, it definitely combines the easy processability of the polymer matrix and the high performance ability of the inorganic materials. Now, even though this mixed matrix membranes definitely will take the advantages of both, it has some problems. What are the problems? First of all, it has to ensure that the polymer and the particle, the filler particle that we are using, which might be some a combination of organic or inorganic particle, so that should have a good compatibility between them. So the polymer and the particle should have a good compatibility so that there is no defect in the membrane. Okay, so if you see in this diagram, the first one shows us an ideal morphology, but in the other cases, we see that sometimes there might be formation of voids, or sometimes the fillers, if it's a porous filler, I mean the inorganic particles, those might, the materials might be plugged into those pores, or otherwise sometimes dense polymer layer also might be formed in the filler particles. So these will not give us a good separation. So in this case, we have to choose that kind of a polymer and a material combination which gives us a very good performance. Okay, so now these are some of the literature. So in this literature, we see by using a different polymer filler combinations, so this some of the results that were obtained in terms of the permeance or permeability. Also, we can measure the CO2 performance and the selectivity. And this thickness depicts the thickness of the membrane. Okay, so the thickness of the membrane has to be always kept low in the micron range. Okay, so this was the setup that we had built in our lab. So in this setup, if you can see, this is a schematic diagram, and on the right you can see these are the images which are taken part by part, definitely. So here, if you see, this is on the right hand side, the topmost, this is the thermo oven inside which we put in the membrane module. Now this membrane module basically looks something like this, where we know after preparing the membrane, we put it into this membrane module, and this membrane module is kept into this oven. Now why we keep it inside the oven? Because we have to see how the membrane is performing at different temperature and pressure conditions. Okay, so that's the reason we put the module inside the oven, and then we check at different temperature how the membrane is performing. So these are the HPLC pumps, so where water is pumped. So a very important factor in this separation is that we have to ensure that there is water being pumped into the system, because the mechanism by which the CO2 gas will be separating through the membrane is via a mechanism which is called the deuteronic mechanism. So for that, we need water. Okay, so in that mechanism, we see that the water only facilitates the CO2 gas to pass from the feed side to the final product side. Okay, so here in this way, this is the feed gas. So this we stimulate as the industrial flue gas conditions. So around 20% CO2 and 80% N2, and this is the sweep gas. So this goes into this membrane module, and after that, we see that after the separation has occurred, we analyze it by using a gas chromatograph. So here from that, it is connected to a computer where we see how the performance is happening. Okay, so this is basically the reaction mechanism which I talked about. So here, if you see this a schematic which is showing us this in dots, if you see here, this is the porous substrate. Now the membrane is actually, as I said, is very thin, so it needs to have a support. Otherwise, the membrane need to have a longevity, right, for it to be used for a longer period of time. So there are chances of wear and tear if you are using the membrane alone. So we put it in a substrate or a support which will help the membrane to give that much needed strength to surpass all those pressure and temperature conditions. So now this is suppose the substrate, and this is a membrane. Okay? So in this membrane, we see that there are two mechanisms, as I said. One is the solution diffusion mechanism, and one is the facilitated transport mechanism. So here we use some amines, okay, and this is the CO2 gas from the feed side, and water, as I said, pumped into. So this amines and then the CO2 and the water combines to form a deuterion, and this deuterion again with a reversible reaction, again it moves around this. So in this way, we can see that we can separate the CO2 very easily from the feed side to the final permeate side. So after this, this is how the reaction mechanism looks like, and these are the ways in which we can measure the CO2 performance. So one is the CO2 flux, the CO2 permeability, the permeance, the selectivity, and this one, as I said, the permeance is calculated in terms of GPU. Now these are the materials which I have used for the work. So here the base polymer which I used was polyvinyl alcohol, because it has got some definitely it has got some very good advantages. One is the good compatibility with the amine, and it is non-toxic and biocompatible. It has high thermal stability. And this polyethylene glycol I have used as another polymer. So here as a blend polymer, I can say, because this polyethylene oxide segment also coordinates efficiently with the polar CO2 molecules to enhance the CO2 solubility. So it definitely helps and triggers the whole separation process. So these are the amines which I have used, so teta and polyethylene amine, and these act as carriers or facilitators in the transport mechanism. Now, why did I select the silica? Now, the silica has been selected because of these advantages. And I have used the sol gel processing for that. So the silica has been synthesized by the Stobers process. So in the Stobers process, I have used tetraethylene orthosilicate as the precursor and the ethanol as the solvent. So after using this, I have kept it at a normal temperature and stirred for around 30 minutes. And thereafter, I have added in HCl and distilled water so that the pH is maintained at around 2. And this after putting it in a temperature of 60 degrees and stirring for 3 hours, we get a silica salt, and the silica salt is further calcined and dried to get the silica powder. So now after this, we know that the reaction mechanism. So the reaction mechanism is something like this. So hydrolysis reaction and the condensation reaction of TEOS. So here this tetraethylene orthosilicate, as I said, this is the silica precursor. So it goes through the hydrolysis and condensation reaction. Now how can we say that the silica is helping us in the whole separation? So it is because the PVA, which I've used as the base polymer, and the silica, now these undergoes hybridization, so which further enhances the cross-linking and also provides advantages of both the organic and the inorganic components. Now this is how I have synthesized the polymer membranes. So this polymer as well as the mixed matrix membrane. So polymer membrane is basically just PVA and PG, and the mixed matrix only PVA, PG and silica. So here I have used the polymer solution. So after this, I have casted it onto this support. Okay, so this I have used a PES support, polyethyl support, and then after this, after casting this polymer solution, I have dried it in a laminar flow chamber, and thereafter I have used a thermo oven, and finally I have obtained this membrane after cross-linking, and then I have put it into the module for the gas separation analysis. So this is how the porous substrate looks like. If you can see, there are some homogeneity in the pores. So this has been actually taken. So we have not, we can also make it, but this one we have purchased it. Okay, so this gives a very porous aligned structure. So then the thermal analysis was done, and then it was seen that the PVA PJ silica membrane, so silica content was weight percent was differed from 0.3 to 6%. So at 3%, we see that the thermal analysis it shows a better stability. This mixed matrix membrane shows a better stability as compared to the polymer membrane. And then the spectroscopic analysis was also done, where the XPS spectroscopy showed and confirmed the presence of the C1s, N1s, O1s, Si2s, and Si2p peaks. If you can see in this diagram, and this morphological analysis was also done. So here I have done the TEM analysis, where I have seen that spherical structure, which is in aligned to the spherical particles should be formed by the Stobers process, has been formed. So, and then the FESEM analysis showed us the top image and the cross-sectional image. So this top image showed the good distribution. If you can see, this is much more, there is no particles or any other things in this top image, quite smooth. This is because there is no silica particles embedded into it, but here there is 3 weight percent and 6 weight percent. We see that the silica particles are evenly distributed. This is a cross-sectional image. So if you see, this is the active layer thickness of the membrane. This is the porous support. Below is the porous support. So then the gas permeation results were checked. So for the temperature variation from 60 to 110, I have seen that both the polymer, both the membranes, it has been observed that the CO2 selectivity as well as the CO2 permeance is increasing, but after a particular temperature it decreases. Now the reason for that is speculated that as we increase the temperature, so the water content in the membrane will decrease. Now, as I said, the water content is a very important phenomena for the whole mechanism of the transport, the facilitation of the gases to take place, right? So when there is the dearth of the water in the membrane, so that will definitely decline the performance of the membrane. So we can see that there is a decline in the performance in the permeance as well as the selectivity. And also for the seawater flow rate also, we have seen that there is the same phenomena which is happening. So at 0.04 sweet water flow rate, it gives us the maximum selectivity and permeance, and thereafter we see that there is not much difference. So then this is the Robson's upper bound curve. So this curve is what helps us in knowing the CO2 permeability and selectivity. So if you can see, there are some already polymers which are, being studied, and we see that these polymer membranes have shown performances below this curve. So if we can get the performance above this curve, then definitely this kind of work can be, put it into a larger perspective, where we can, use it for a pilot scale or industrial scale application. So for my work, I have seen that these results have surpassed the Robson's upper bound curve. So these can definitely be applied for industrial applications. So then another work which I have done is I have used Jiffit MOFs. So this Jiffit MOFs are definitely very good, properties. But this work I will not showing. But yes, this work has also been done. So that has been embedded into the PVA GFIG mixed matrix membrane. And these are some of the recommendations where it is seen that we can also do the SOX-NOx studies and economic assessment, and other types of filler materials can be worked upon. And this is the overall conclusion, which shows that the incorporation of these silica or GFIG MOF fillers have improved the thermal, mechanical, or the thermochemical properties of the membrane. And not just that, it has also increased the gas permeation performance of the membranes. So definitely the use of this filler particles have, upgraded the performance of these membranes. So these are some of my publications, and these are some of the research I've put. And I would definitely like to acknowledge here my research supervisor and the DST, New Delhi Government of India, for the sponsoring of the projects. And this is all about it. Thank you so much. So now I would really be glad if there are any other questions.